Welcome to another episode of the ChrisRodMaxShow. We are the AI podcast where every week we discuss in depth what's happening in AI and how this is affecting multiple industries. And with that in mind, we are super thrilled to have this week Adriana Ignat. Adriana, welcome to have you here.
So great to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we have a deep dive for this week's show, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself, Adriana? So basically, you have like a super long career. There is so many things that are super exciting, but what will be here like the highlights?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose a couple of the things that I love having spent time on is the Google Ad Tech portfolio of products. I've been at Google for over 14 years. I worked on various ad products, both on the buy side and sell side, portfolio spanning millions of users and actual millions of dollars. Then, as of more recently, I became a VP of product and design at a small startup fintech company based out of Ireland, where I have built products for M&A processes on Wall Street. And very, very recent, but in the works for a while, I am now the happy founder of VEKT AI, an AI transformation partner, an assembly line for AI readiness for companies and individuals.
Wow. So you've seen everything from here big tech all the way to being your own business, basically having your own business. And so here, is there like a thread that you notice along all these? So maybe for your career or maybe also in general for how the industry has evolved?
Yeah, a constant trend and a takeaway, I suppose, for me personally and for my career has been relentless learning. I think at every stage in my career, I felt I was starting anew. Every time I made a change or I went for a new project, it has always felt very much like curiosity was the driver or it was in the driver's seat for me. Um, and I suppose grounding yourself or having time to learn and overcome, I suppose, the insecurities of, performing in a new space or having to adapt new techniques to your craft, especially as a product manager, is critical. So a trend for product managers in general, and one that I have definitely fallen into, has been continuous learning. And despite of how it may look from the outside, product managers are forever students.
That's a really good segue in our first topic. So for our deep dive with you, so we want to really touch what's happening in product management in this age of AI. And you were mentioning now here learning, right? So you have to be constant learners. I believe the same. I believe that we're in an age where we have to be generalist because if we're too specialized, then of course AI can do it better. But it's not only these perceptions. Also, for example, like Gartner has been releasing some studies showing that definitely the whole market's been upended. Also, for example, we see how tools such as linear and other classic product management tools are somehow taking over more and more tasks that were like the classic, so bread and butter of a product manager. So you've been deep in the trenches. Can you share with us what has changed in the last 2-3 years for product managers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if AI particularly is becoming multi-modal, product managers are becoming multi-dimensional. In the past, or the more classic times for product managers to emerge in the space of, I suppose, building products, it's been quite difficult for product managers to cross certain barriers across other disciplines, particularly around technical barriers and engineering. In general, it's been, great as a product manager to be able to write code, but also, review and understand codes. But it was quite a rare trait in most organizations, and most PMs are somewhat technical, empathetic, but not technically, versed. They're not engineers, which is fine. I think with AI particularly, we're seeing a shift of that quality of being dimensional as a PM, both in engineering and, we're seeing all these platforms where you can definitely take advantage of some engineering acumen and then, try and overcome some of the barriers that were probably difficult to do to overcome in the past, but also across other disciplines like design. I am someone who is absolutely not design inclined, and it's been difficult to me as a product manager in the past to see, I suppose, the design piece before, or to put it somewhat to connect it in my head. And I think with the emergence of AI, and particularly, I love, for example, I love how Figma now allows for you to put in your very, very scrappy prototypes into their AI tools, or even generate prototypes from just flows, so ideas of how things are, the nodes in the product are connecting, and it would just do it for you. And I think for a product manager to visualize that, we're very visual people, despite of lesser inclination necessarily to the beauty of design. And I think for that, for us to be able to run images, video, I suppose, content that's visual and breathes life into our product documentation, that oftentimes can be difficult to parse, boring, and extremely tedious to put together. Yeah, it really enriches the PM experience.
Very interesting, Adriana. And what I'm hearing from you is there are a couple of AI tools that, as a PM, you can use now, helping you to simplify your workflows, helping with orchestration. For me, let's take a step back, and I'd like to ask or start asking you, what is your definition of a product manager? Since product managers are always very different from company to company. So that would be my first question. So what is your definition of a product manager? My second question would be, do you think that in the era of Gen AI and AI, whatever is going to come, that role will become more relevant or less relevant?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I suppose in my experience, the product manager is someone who helps the builders, I suppose the hidden builders of a product experience, connect with the user and with their user requirements. And I guess they are guardians of what's getting built and what's getting put into the market, into the world. They are, I suppose, the person responsible before a piece of technology is put into the hands of users, and they should feel like they're, the mini CEOs, or, the mini owners of the products that they are responsible for, or the features that they are responsible for, that the impact is meaningful and that the usage is relevant to the, requirements that were collected and defined in the ideation phase. So I think organizations have different ways to see the product manager. In this product world now, there's all sorts of roles that kind of are hybrid product managers. You would have technical product managers, and then you would have product owners, and you would have these, product leaders who actually lead product people, but not necessarily build products. So I think one red wire, I suppose, in the product management world is definitely the responsibility around the technology that's put out there for users. And when product managers or product management teams understand their roles into ensuring that there's accountability in that space, so therefore they have an active and contributing role to the quality and scale of their products. I think when that happens, product managers fall into place in their organization and understand what they have to do.
Well, so basically, the definition you gave us is a product manager is someone who makes sure that the builders can build and that they build towards user requirements, needs, and pain points.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that that's going to be more relevant, that role within Gen AI and AI, or do you think it's going to be less relevant? That's close hand.
I think it's increasingly relevant and quite urgent for product managers. If they're not doing what we've just talked about, I think they are they need to start doing that more so that they stay relevant in the face of this AI technology exploding across tasks that product managers have probably done in the past, but maybe shouldn't have. I've worked in organizations where product managers were guardians of backlog tickets, or I've worked in organizations where product managers, just moved laundry lists from engineers to design and you assigned to, commercialization teams and so on. And I think that's not necessarily the job or the what you should do every single day, every single hour. Basically, if that is the way the organization is allowing for product managers to perform, yes, you're not going to be very relevant. I think if the shift of the product manager is now turning into how responsibly the user requirements and the data collected as part of their technology and their product is actually put in place, then their role will become much more critical and urgent in any organization. And in order to do so, I believe that it is very important for product managers to leverage AI to do the kind of easier tasks or things that they used to do before that actually were not part of their strategic input into the organization. So, you can absolutely use AI now for so many things that we used to actually, die a long death for. So you can, as I said, get velocity with different prototypes. I mean, just the other week when Lovable was free, people were shooting MVPs left and right, and it was such a collaborative space. I think AI is helping PMs descend from their golden tower of ideation and very unrealistic perception of the PM, and actually enhance their collaboration within the organization. If you are a PM in a company that is not product led, so treats you like an admin of information passed left and right, or if you're just doing that, it will become difficult to stay relevant. If you are a PM who is in an organization that is technology led, strategy led in terms of the product and what the product is driving for the company, so user loyalty, user empathy, all of these more emotional pieces for the product, I think your existence will become more and more relevant in the organization.
Yeah, and so you're basically looking at both sides, and depending on the situation. Actually, my take is very simple. I actually believe that the product management skill set is going to be even more relevant in the AI space, and there are two reasons for that. The first is I actually attended Super AI in Singapore. It was a huge conference, lots of people coming, and there was a keynote around emotionality, and that's almost like, let's say, I mean, more dramatically, the last frontier where humans can play a role and being able to really humanize. And maybe that's only in this transition phase that we're in right now. But I do believe that what you just said around, being able to translate user needs into some product feature, that's really something that I think is still based on human emotionality and human, or EQ, basically. The second one is I really want to believe that the role of a product manager will maybe change in the way that you will not have your designer sitting there anymore, but your agentic AI something, right? So the role may change because you actually have to take care of other, machines or bots or whatnot. But I do believe that the main key skill a product manager has is almost like this orchestration, filtering, and making the decision what is the next feature to launch and to roll out, that's actually something that will always be in the hands of a human being.
But here, how the counterpoint. So here I'm thinking, isn't that exactly what an AI is really good at? So you're basically saying, Chris, so you want something or someone who can prioritize. You want also who knows here what's performing better, who has access to the data, and who can like coordinate this task and basically set like the to-dos. Wouldn't that be an AI better? Because for me, when I think about like a product manager, and I talk to a lot of developers, and very often they are a bit allergic to product management because they say, hey, like this role is pretty much just a project manager, as you were saying, Adriana. So it's just like moving a laundry list, so creating these tickets and so on. But then they always question, what is the value that a product manager is bringing? And then if we think about, let's say like an engineering-led organization who will be very excited about AI, there is a high chance that one of the roles they might consider replacing or largely having instead an AI with product management, just along by the fact that they do not identify themselves with this role and they often do not see value around that. And here for me, Adriana, will be the question, what can product managers do here? You were mentioning about becoming better. So here with, let's say like usability, be more like design oriented, where you said here, you have a bit this weakness, but this is something that's important. What about coding skills? Should product managers learn how to code? Should they become more of a, let's say, like a leader in some sense? What are, let's say, these defensible skills that product managers need to have for this new age?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows now that, tools like Logable, Replit, even Cursor, right? They are democratizing this access to code. And I suppose for non-technical people, it's an incredible revelation. But I will say that there is this misconception that's quite popular, which is that these tools are removing the barriers to coding. And in general, for the masses, you can say that yes, more people will have access to running, or to skipping some steps. But I think in order for product managers to stay relevant, especially now where code is somewhat democratized through these platforms, and in order for them to have even closer collaborations with engineering, they have to become even more technically savvy, and particularly upgrade their literacy of technology around AI, but also around more traditional data stack architecture. They have to understand how the systems they're managing are working. They have to understand, and something that I've seen really good product managers do, they understand what is difficult for an engineer to do and what is not, which means that then they would have the ability to create better requirements for their engineers, because they would understand when something is going to take a long time or very difficult to create. I think in the face of AI making things easier in general, product managers have to have a more profound understanding of the impact of code being now accessible in principle for other disciplines. And they have to start realizing how the APIs are collecting and storing the data, how they're communicating with each other. And I think they're also have to start knowing how to ask questions that have technical acumen in them, seeing how agents are entering the space. We are probably the last generation, or, for the younger PMs that are going to have human-only PM teams. There's going to be more and more agent PMs or agent assistants entering the space of, product management teams. And I think it's really important for PMs to now get ready around understanding how agentic AI or agents work within their teams and how they are able to interact freely with their stack or, their future technical code, for example, and how their data sits. So overall, Rob, I think I actually am of the opinion that while coding as a skill is no longer the kind of this big wall that you had to go to university for 6 years and be very good at it actually to become a good PM, or you had to have this computer science degree in your academic accomplishments. I think that while that is maybe a little bit more or less prevalent now, what's becoming really important is actually for the PM to become technically empathetic and to have a good acumen around what their engineering teams are doing, how difficult it is for them to do what their requirements are asking them to do, to understand their API systems, to be able to audit and review them. Don't sit in every single code release session with your engineering team, but have a holistic understanding of where your technology or like your features technology is going. And particularly, I think in the wake of AI, of how AI is affecting that, or any sort of AI integration is affecting that, if you are an AI native product manager.
Yes, definitely here what I see for future product leaders, you were mentioning is one, knowing our interfaces, two, you mentioned so lovable, and three, this knowledge of so agentic AI, right? So as core skills or tools that people should be aware of in 2025 in order to be relevant in this so highly changing job market. And I like here to move to our other large topic here, Adriana, around ad tech. So you spent many years doing basically advertising technology. Yes. And here is something where I am so perplexed about what's happening in that sector. Where if you were thinking about, let us say, 5, 10 years, and of course, a long time ago, ad tech was an actual industry. So there were so many vendors, there were so many players, so many tools around. And slowly there was a consolidation towards purely the Google ecosystem, right? And not only that you'll only advertise on Google, but also that you use the Google tools. There used to be, let's say, like tools for keyword generation. And then suddenly these tools got integrated into AdWords. And then you don't need a third party tool for generating your keywords, but rather you use AdWords. But now we're seeing a shift where on one side, of course, thanks to ChatGPT, we do not need it anymore, let's say, like the Google tool, because we can ask just ChatGPT, hey, give me a list of keywords. And the other thing is from the usage perspective, where I see how people are asking things that before used to be a query. So, for example, before, if you're visiting, let's say, like Dublin, you'll write on Google, so top 10 bars in Dublin. And then you'll find like a website with a listicle of the top 10 bars, and that's what you'll use. But now you go to ChatGPT or Perplexity and you say, ChatGPT, tell me what are like top 10 bars on Dublin. And here, what I want to know, Adriana, is if you can maybe like guide us a little bit on what have you seen has changed in the last years in this industry, and also if you have an idea of where is it headed.
Yeah, it's a big question, isn't it? And I think many internet analysts are looking at the ways, I suppose, AI and overall the user behavior of previously browsing Google search or using these more embedded tools when it comes to advertising in the past is now shifting rapidly because we love to get our answer so quickly, and we are probably not using Google search as much. I remember when I used to work for Google, and particularly around the Google ads for sell side. So if you were a publisher, you could monetize your website or your long form content through Google AdSense ads. And one of the things we used to say is that ads keep the internet free. And, it was very relevant because, with the revenues that the ads were generating. And I suppose we at Google, we felt like the impact on certain user segments around, maybe ad fatigue, or maybe it's not a right ad for you, and so on. Overall, those were impacts that were worth exploring under the circumstances of the internet, being an open and free platform for all. I think now with AI entering the space, and we're seeing if you're going to Google, it's immediate. It just fuels the search query into Gemini. Or you could go to ChatGPT or to other platforms, like you said, Rod. And I think what we're seeing is rather than an open internet, it's more like it's the battle of the giants trying to put together this wall gardens around the content that they are build up on. And I think that Google will do very well in this space. That there's this like perception that because the search queries no longer send traffic to the websites, it's going to disrupt the ad ecosystem, because obviously in the past you would search something on Google and then you would go to a website, like you said, and that's where, as a user, you would see the ads and you would click on the ads, which then would generate this auction between, sell side, buy side, and everyone got a cut. I think that the fact that we're rarely doing that anymore, we're not penetrating, we don't have an extra click on the website, is definitely a turmoil for most publishers. And we're seeing this in the industry press as well, where publishers are worried about their site traffic and their value of their content. I mean, content creation is an incredibly vast industry for Google, and I think content creators or publishers are generally worried. But I think it will only allow for, um, like everyone and like everything, it will have to readapt to the ways users are now receiving their information. Um, I think that there will be an adaptation of the ad model that we know or used to know before, to now basically see advertising experiences for content that is extremely, extremely relevant to you as a user. So if you are someone who goes to, Google search, or you want to go on to Gemini, I think that that will be your walled garden of your own advertising experiences for content that is extremely suitable to your search needs or browsing needs, or maybe conversational needs with your AI chatbot. And I believe that very, very soon, publishing will no longer be that valuable on necessarily websites, as especially across SMB and long tail. It's going to be much more relevant in terms of how you publishing is no longer going to be done just for monetization. It's going to be done for educating LLMs, so that that LLM can pull information from your published content and allow for you to monetize them further.
There a lot to dissect, Adriana. And then, so let us imagine this situation. So here, a local publisher from Dublin comes to you. So let's say like the local newspaper. Say, hey, Adriana, I'm really worried because already we're having trouble for years with AdWords, right? So it is something where Google is taking our content, using it on Google News and so on. But now it's gotten worse, because now we do not even get the traffic. We see that whenever someone asks a question on Google, it summarizes the answer, and that's it. That's where the search journey ends. There is no successive clicks. And then this newspaper comes to you and say, Adriana, we want to get ready for this age of AI. What can we do? And what would you do for them? What would you suggest? Is there something they can do, or are they just destined to be the next dinosaurs?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things that they can do. I think, you know, for the longest time, for maybe decades, it was just enough to write a piece of content on the internet or have a blog and monetize it and make money with it. And that is how millions of publishers have created value in this space. I think in the age of AI, as a publisher or as a content creator, as a newspaper owner, you have to make sure that if you're going to have people coming to your website one way or the other, because I think with explainability in AI, and particularly around Gemini, for example, you know, Gemini will start or has started already adding the website. So it will start to, that walled garden will transform and will start redirecting traffic to the websites that are highly relevant for the results they are presenting to the user. Now, if you keep this in mind as a content creator, as a publisher, you have to adapt your content creation strategies to this new order, which is you probably can't have like a block of text, just talking with expecting for the user to go above the fold, below the fold, and read the information. You probably have to restructure the way you present your information. You probably have to integrate with an agent. You probably have to become a player in this field as well. You probably have to become somewhat AI native yourself and have searchability features in your content, have a very distilled summary at the top that's probably going to be picked up by the LLM in the first place. You're going to have better designs and better cognition function for your content so that the user is hooked immediately and they know exactly, imagine you're now, I mean, this is what I tell to some of the companies that I work with today, even. The bar has shifted so high that in a way it's kind of comforting that the rest of us are equalized in that fight to get to that bar now. I think that, there's this giant players, and it's great that the bar has shifted this high where, the experience of consuming the content is very walled garden protected in a way. You have these AI engines that are incredibly personalized, and you can even tell they have a different personality, if you can say that. Like, ChatGPT will sound different than Gemini, will sound different than Claude, and so on. And I think you have that experience as a user, and this is where we're very, very adaptable human beings when it comes to better experiences. I think we immediately normalize that. We immediately think as users that this is the way all the information on the web should now be made available. And all of the information on the web should be searchable. And all of the information on the web should be, explained and vetted and validated. Whereas the vast sea, of content that's on the internet is actually still existing in a kind of like what we know to be traditional publishing and traditional content creation. And I think that looking at how these bigger LLMs have made searchability, explainability, validation for their content, and content you can probe and ask it over and over to think critically about what it has brought you. I think this is the way publishers and content creators, people who put content out there, these are some things they can do to adapt their content to this new order. I think if you do that, then your content is going to be picked up faster by the LLM, and that is a 10x, if not 100x times exposure than anything Google search could have done for you in the past, which means that you have now an incredible potential to boosting traffic. But you have, as an owner of a website, you have to adapt your techniques for content creation to now match this new ways of exposure.
And so somehow we can find some solace in that the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and our little blog, they're all struggling equally. And then somehow this offers opportunity for, let's say, reset the competition. And then maybe we have now a chance to compete against, so here, the New York Times, right? But at the same time, I wonder if for some maybe just too late in that. So you're saying here, one needs to become AI native, one needs to basically restructure all their content. So for not making scrollable, but rather have like important pieces at the beginning, such that they can be found by an AI and so on. And this was historically also the role of the marketing agencies, where this is something where it's a huge ecosystem of so many very specialized agencies of copywriters, designers, digital agents, and so on.
Everybody says SEO is dead. I think in the way SEO used to be created by copywriters and SEO engineers and overall people who understood how content is tracked and surfaced on the internet. Yeah, those techniques need to evolve. But SEO is now applicable in a different channel and in a different environment. And I think techniques to do good SEO, so search engine optimization, will have to adapt to match the ways of, I suppose, this AI wall gardens.
But will that be like the role of a human or the role of an AI? Because think about agencies. So agencies historically has been something where the positions might not be that well paid. They might be also they've been very demanding as a roles. People work there long hours, but then people were satisfied because they were creating something. It was also something that was an opportunity that maybe be in contact with brands and so on. So it was a highly sought after career path, and even with all the limitations. But now I wonder, and I ask you, Adriana, do you think there's space for agencies, marketing agencies in this world of AI, or you think they're also destined to maybe slowly?
Yeah, I absolutely think that there is space for this kind of agencies, but I do think that their contributions are changing a little bit. Again, just like, at the beginning of our conversations around PMs, I think these marketing agencies are going to bring much more value, and they need to understand today the pathways of doing so around the empathy of how content, or the kind of like the human values that AI is not very good at doing today. So it's not necessarily the content generation and how you structure your bullet points. I think you can do that very easily with AI now, but it's the ability to speak through the text about, the emotional capacity of a text to influence conversion online for a user, or cultural considerations. Not everything is commercial in certain parts of the world. Or, I think also, again, a huge one for marketing agencies, I think localization. So products going where, the internet is not all English. And I think localization is still something that AI is catching up with. And I think these marketing agencies, and I don't only mean the language, but also, I suppose, the more local aspects of how internet is consumed in general. And you will see that some parts of the world are very social, and they have more of social values around their usage of internet, and particularly around how they rely on the information they found on the internet, while other ones are more research driven and data driven, and people like to go and do a lot of research before I suppose purchasing something or converting on an action. I think marketing agencies are going to become very critical around understanding the nuances of their, I suppose, users, of their audience, and helping that kind of language. And I mean here not only English, French, or whatever, but I suppose the overall all encompassing emotional, nuanced, subdued messages that come with, I suppose, joke, irony, humor, all of those things that are traits that, very specific to us humans, and AI is not there yet, I suppose, but probably will be. And then we'll have to reinvent ourselves again. I think marketing agencies in this space have a real opportunity to become the human in the loop that we all, keep talking about when it comes to the use of AI.
And just zooming out here a little bit, I mean, we've been talking about the marketing industry, and obviously, yes, we all agree that it's getting disrupted, perhaps. But to be very honest, guys, I mean, it's been like that forever for marketing and advertising, right? And I mean, it started out with advertising on newspapers. Remember those days? And then it slowly towards like billboards. Then we had the whole TV era, and everyone was like trying to have ads and very prodigiously during Super Bowl type of events. And then obviously the internet, and you had Google search, and then you started advertising. And I think this is just a normal development and evolution of advertising, because there are normal or new technology platforms arising. And actually, having lived in China before, what you can see in China is that, because Google is blocked and everything, people don't really do search on like a browser, like the way we would do it in the Western world, but rather you would have it implemented in apps, native to apps, such as WeChat, for example. Sort of like the WhatsApp of China, and then you would consume all your content there. You would all consume all different product searches there, or directly on, platforms such as Alibaba, which I think is very similar to maybe the type of behavior you have with Amazon. Like, you want to buy a product, you go on Amazon. You don't necessarily need to start your search or your experience from Google. And And I can see the parallel to an LLM model, right? Where now you're asking ChatGPT all these questions. And I think there are some LLMs that already surface some shopping experiences. I think it was Claude, if I'm not mistaken. That actually just changes the entire paradigm of marketing and advertising, and it will come in a different type of flavor and shape. And it might be something that, we can draw some parallels to how the Chinese internet ecosystem is.
But then, Chris, maybe so here what I wonder, so here for, and actually for both of you, it is, so it sounds basically on what Chris is saying that, yes, there'll be still, of course, an economy, right? So it's not that suddenly we're all off of the jobs. But then what Chris is describing, it is that we removed so many middlemen in the process, where now, instead of, for example, we're having before Amazon, so many online shops. There was an online shop for like lamps, an online shop for like plants, an online shop for like microphones, and now there is only Amazon. Sure, the suppliers are still on Amazon, but all the ecosystem around it basically disappeared. And then it sounds like it might end up being the case here for AI, where so sure people will keep selling things online, likely at lower margins, but then everyone who was supporting this process is basically gone. Do you see that happening, Adriana, or maybe you have like a more positive take in all this?
Yeah, I think as I said, this entrance of like AI, I suppose, in the ad tech is definitely going to purge some of the middle agents, especially around, the ones that used to be easy to skip without the AI as well. Like you said, like you would not necessarily, if I suppose user behaviors are very easily learned. And like Chris said earlier, many users around the world, they don't go on Google search, or they don't necessarily have a browsing behavior before going on and converting about something. They would go on these super apps, like I said, the walled gardens, and a lot of the opportunities to make money or have economy online on the internet are no longer there, because people just go straight to the source. I think that is very much what AI will bring to the ecosystem as well, where you could think of Gemini, for example, if we're talking about the Google Ad Tech network, as the new super app. It's not even a super app. It's it's a conduit. It will just interconnect all of the other products, and it will become a powerhouse for all of the technology that Google, and we're just giving Google as an example here, but I believe anyone who becomes at that scale of AI development should and will see a shift in that paradigm. I think AI will flow both through the products, but also will just kind of like put a band around the products that Google has at the minute. And it's not going to be just the ad products. I think that these products will start getting more and more interconnected, where, there is a lot of integration going on at the minute, and or in the past as well. I mean, if you were to create an ad, you could also integrate with your Google Maps listing, and maybe you could, before it was shut down, you could have your Google Circles or your Google Plus One or whatever, all of these extensions. So these, or, you could do Google Pay for your payments. So the products at Google are already extremely integrated. A lot of middleman services were quite easy enough to avoid already. So if you are in that industry, I would say, it is going to be more difficult to survive in the wake of these AI wall gardens becoming not only the kind of like the red wire inside their products, but also the wall around their products, where the ecosystem is kind of like collapsing inside, and it's basically creating a vortex for all of the online user behaviors that we're seeing right now, kind of like in an open space, but they're just going to be, pulled. AI will have a massive gravitational pull for the ad tech industry, for sure.
Yes, and that's really like a good summary of AI will have massive, as a here repercussions on the AI industry. And I like to have here like a last segment, Adriana, so where I like to ask you some quick questions, and then the first thing, like just a word, and the first thing that comes to mind, you tell me, right? So just very spontaneously. So AI,
Don't be afraid. It's okay.
product management,
Big changes ahead. Get ready.
product managers,
Still champions of their products and users.
Dublin,
Home.
the future of AI,
Unpredictable, but exciting.
AI products,
Gentech, open source, Gemini, lovable, constant discovery.
the next big thing.
The sentient frontier.
Wow. Fascinating, Adriana. And so here we cover so many topics, but of course there is always so many things that we're leaving out. Of course, we can always here spend hours talking and talking. But is there anything
Let's do that. I would love that. I would love to spend hours.
Yes, it can become a stream so anyone can tune in and hear live stream. And is there anything, Adriana, that you'd like to leave our audience with? Is there anything that you feel we might not have covered, or anything that you would like to emphasize for our listeners?
Look, I think it's not a bubbly take that I have around AI. I have, seen teams getting laid off and people fearing it massively and having reluctancy to adapt to it. I think that while it can have those societal impacts, I see AI as a tremendous technological moment, and we're very lucky to be alive and see it evolve. One thing that I would say to any product manager who sees this, because product managers are the closest to my heart, I suppose, and I completely understand the pain points there, is to continue to champion their users, to continue to develop their technical acumen, and to start learning about how to manage, collaborate, and work with and learn from AI agents. It is coming in the next couple of months, even.
Wow. Well, that's a very good way to finalize here our show today. Thanks so much, Adriana. And so basically for everyone else, so if you want to connect with Adriana, because also now she's doing AI transformation, she's helping businesses of all sizes basically get ready for AI. Where can they find you, Adriana? What's the best way to reach you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me through you guys. You can probably find me at VEKT AI, or you can just connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm always happy for a chat and a good coffee. So yeah, for sure, if you want to know more about AI readiness and particularly AI transformation for both individuals and organizations, I'm your girl.
Absolutely. And definitely for anyone who is in Dublin, Adriana is always like the go-to person.
I am actually. I love Dublin. And if anyone ever lands here, please let me know.
Yes. And for those who have not yet been there, basically come, listen to the show, contact with Adriana, and see you next week for another episode of the ChrisRodMaxShow. We are the AI Podcast. Until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.